Hello YouTube. Today I'm going to do a quick, basic, I guess a tutorial, just showing you how to do some basic retouching in Photoshop. This is a picture of a friend of mine. It's a pretty bad picture, but he's a, I mean, it's just a bad picture. But yeah, well, what happened there? So, shit. Oh, there you go. Okay. I don't even know how to use Photoshop. Anyway, so this is Photoshop CS5. I've been using Photoshop since like Photoshop 7, like 10 years ago. So yeah, I'm just going to show you guys how to do some basic retouching using the latest features. So first of all, what I'm going to do, I'm going to be doing a sort of high pass configuration. Some of you may know what that is. If you don't, you'll find out. Um, So first what I'm going to do is just take the spot healing brush tool and just like go over whatever can be healed with this. And it doesn't have to look perfect because when we do the blurring and the retexturing, it's gonna sort of sort itself out. But I find that the spot healing brush tool in CS5 is pretty good, and it manages to take out things that are like even bigger imperfections like that. So you just got rid of that right there, and that was nothing. Um, and you want to make sure that you really get everything because if you miss something and then it ends up on the other layers and then you see it later, you're going to have to end up removing it from all three of the layers, and that can become a lot more complicated because they'll have different balances. One of them will be blurred, so the edges will be fucked up. So just try and get out as many obvious perfections as you can. Ones that you know are not going to go away even when you blur it, because most of it is just going to go away. But the ones that you know are going to be persistent, you just try your best to get rid of as many of those as possible. Um, and what we're also going to do is we're going to work on the redness that he has going on in his face here. Just get rid of some of the bumps. And this is perfectly normal. I mean, most people would look like this up close, and he was apparently kind of sweaty when these pictures were taken, so it's not like he's ugly or something. Obviously, he's not, so yeah. So I'm just going to keep getting rid of as many bumps and red spots as possible. And I think that looks good enough for the spot removal. Okay, so what we want to do now is duplicate the layer twice. Okay, and then I'm going to group those layers just for organization and for the masking of it. And then this one I'm going to call texture, because that's going to be the layer that kind of reinstates the texture. And this one is going to be the retouch layer. So let's make the texture layer invisible first, and then go to Filter, Gaussian Blur. Some people like to use the surface blur, but that really doesn't create enough of a smoothness on the skin. It actually kind of sharpens some of the things, and then you have to end up going in and blurring it yourself. So use Gaussian blur. It's a lot more effective than surface blur. Even though surface blur preserves the edges, we can get rid of the blurred edges with the mask later. So that's Gaussian blur, and with Gaussian blur the goal is just to make sure that the skin looks generally smooth after you've blurred it. That's the whole point of the thing. Okay, so let's make the texture layer visible now, and then go to Filter, Other, High Pass. And you don't want it to be too super sharp, because you just want it to add that texture of the skin back in. And the really sharp points, like around the hair and everything, we're going to end up masking that anyway, and around the teeth and the eyes. Because if it looks too sharp, it's going to look really creepy. So yeah, and then change this to overlay. Now it looks kind of like an 80s glamour portrait. But yeah, so what you want to do with this high pass is make it slightly less visible. And what we're going to do is actually make a mask over this entire group, and then make the parts where it needs to be the original layer just painted in black. Um, so, and you want to do this on a lower opacity because you don't want it to be completely revealed immediately. And remember, this mask applies to both of these layers. If you want to do something individually, you can do that as well. You just have to make a mask for each of these layers. And sometimes I do that too. You want to make sure that none of the edges are blurred. That's kind of the most important part, especially in fine details like here in his eyelids and the eyebrow hairs and everything, because it's going to make it look like an 80s glamour portrait, and it's going to look fake, and you don't want that. So the hairline, the outline of the face is very important in making sure that it's sharp. Just going to turn up the opacity of this a little bit. It doesn't take so long. Here he's got a little bit of a beard. And what we're going to do after this is actually try and reduce some of the redness. And that's very easy. So it just has to be done in moderation. Otherwise he'll end up looking dead. So, or like a statue. Anything where there's fine details, make sure that it's not blurred at all, because that just makes it look ridiculous. And we're going to tweak the opacity of these layers as well, because I think right now the blurred layer is a little bit too opaque. He shouldn't really look this blurry. The body was already slightly out of focus, yeah, but just make sure that the edges are good. It's really funny to look at the mask layers. Look at that. But it does help though, because see, I didn't even know that there was still so much blur that was visible here. But you do want to make sure that there is a gradient between the blur being visible and invisible, because otherwise, if it just goes straight from blurry to sharp, it becomes a problem. Hairy nipples. Just to preserve the integrity of the photo, let's make sure the nipple hair is in clear view. That looks pretty okay. And if you view it at a more acceptable size, yeah. And again, I think I want to make the blur layer a little bit less opaque. Actually, I want to make both of them a little bit less opaque. Right now they're at 100%. Sometimes it makes such a small difference, and I can't tell if it really made any difference or not. The texture layer should be less opaque. I'm just worried about this forehead area. And you can also, selectively make, certain areas less opaque than others. Doobity-doo. No, that doesn't help any. Yeah, sometimes bumps on the skin can be really problematic. Sometimes you might want to just blur all the skin and then add like a noise effect. And what you can do is you can add a noise effect, and then you can use the unsharp mask or the high pass or the bevel. There's a whole bunch of different features that you can use that will turn the noise filter into kind of a bumpy looking thing that kind of resembles more of a human skin texture, and you can use that. And in ad retouching, a lot of them use fiber effects, and personally I don't like that because it makes it look like everyone has a hairy face. And if you ever go to like a bus stop and you see a picture of a model, if you look at their face up close, it always looks like they have little hairs all over their faces, and they don't. People don't have hairy faces like that, especially not like supermodels. So it's kind of a problem, but I guess it looks the most authentic from a distance. So I think this is pretty good for this part of it, and then I'm gonna add a layer on top of it, and I think I have another file that I did. Yeah, this one looks way better. Maybe because I had this layer. Okay, so this one, yeah, this is basically what it looks like. I know it looks ridiculous, but this is kind of the easiest and quickest way to do it. And I don't really like to fool around with the color scales and everything because it just never really works out that well for me. And this is kind of a direct approach. I just take a sample of the skin from somewhere and then I just paint it over the red areas. And then I put it onto color and I do a very low opacity. And I know that that seems kind of unprofessional, but the way that I approach Photoshop is just it's a means to an end. So whatever you do in Photoshop, it doesn't really matter. There's no, I mean, there are professional techniques to everything, but as long as you're achieving a satisfying result, it doesn't really matter how you get there because nobody knows, and even if they did know, they don't care if the result is good. Um, and I do professional graphic design work, so I'm not just talking out my ass. So if you just directly apply it like this, he's going to start to look like a zombie or something. So you want to definitely scale it back. And as you're looking through the opacities, you want to make it invisible and then visible again to see if you're actually making a difference. Anyway, I just wanted to show basic high pass retouching in Photoshop, just for basic needs, not for professional techniques or anything that you would use when you're actually getting paid, when and if. For before and after, we're going to get nice and up close here, and to make sure it's HD as possible, and you can see the major differences that were made in just a few minutes. It would take me literally less than 10 minutes to do this to one photograph. So, and it's makes it, you know, takes it from this, which looks kind of greasy and kind of bad reflection of a good looking person, and then you take it to this, which is a more acceptable Facebook profile picture or whatever the hell you want to use it for. Yeah, so thanks for watching, and I hope you liked it, and leave me any comments for what you would like to see me do in Photoshop. I also do illustration and stuff. Yeah, so thanks for watching. Bye.